Be true. Hello, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday. So good to see you, and welcome one and all. Thank you for being part of the journey and adding to the favor of flavor. How's that? Speaking favor over all of this, by the way, abundant, loving favor. It is the key, as I knew, but it's always nice when you get affirmations from different sources. It appears that a person's whose mind is focused on favor, and if you want to add love to that, that's cool. Whatever you want to put that word to, it is actually the key of escaping this cycle. Yeah. Because tomorrow night, as y'all know, and you should be telling everybody on your social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, whatever it is, and tell them to tune in tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. This interview, I've got 25 pages left of the book, and mind is thoroughly stimulated, great intense coitus of mental thought. John Edmonds, owner of the Stardust Ranch. He is the last private citizen of the other two. Many of you have probably not heard of the second one, and I think it's Baker, but don't quote me on that. But the other one you've heard very well. There have been movies made on it. Bob Bigelow and his ranch, the Skinwalker Ranch. Now, the government has bought both of those properties, and John is the last one. And folks, this is going to be a story you're going to want to hear. And we are just, it shows you how favor works. I thank Bruce for reaching out, and John as well. And gentlemen, so looking forward to having you on tomorrow night. So please tune in. You're going to enjoy it. I can assure you, no doubt about it. You will find it to be mind expanding. These things, these portals. And I want to get the the other property. Excuse me a second. I don't know why this thing gets messed up like that, but it does sometimes. So I always like that. You're going, now wait a minute. And of course he drops his pen, but never fear. I have another one here. So anyway, isn't that just disturbing? Now, anyway, we'll just let that ride like that. Okay. Nothing you can do about it, Steiger. Just roll with it, buddy. Now, Saturday night as well, going to have another special guest. You've seen him in the chat room, the Devil's Playground. That's Nigel. Nigel lives in China. He will be on Saturday night. Be Saturday night here, 7 o'clock. Be 10 o'clock a.m. his time, and he's in Bali. So any of you who have had any questions, ever wondered about China? He is a Chinese citizen. I believe I'm right. If I'm not, he'll correct me on that. But I think it's going to be fun. So tune in Saturday night. Boy, talk about busy. Also tonight, the Steiger Perspective over on artistfirst.com. 2 years been on the Artist First radio network, and been fun. It's really has it's stimulating. You can say more over there. It's not censored in any way. And tonight, tune in. I will most likely do a show on this topic, but tune in. You'll see. Yeah, you'll see. So anyway, that's it. Thank you, everyone. So many people in the chat room. So good to see you. How's it going? Hey, Susie Q. Hello, Lois, Queen, Cajun Queen Tarot. Who's else in here? Infinite Frequencies. Robin, good to see you. Nina the Mystic. Hello. Rod, good to see you. Daniel, Karen. What's that? What is it? Eye of the Maelstrom. I like that. So, Hollow Earth. Real? Imaginary? Yeah, you've got, let's see, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right, in 1492. His journey was to see about going around the world, going to the Indies. We now know that the Phoenicians probably traveled around the world, as did the Vikings and who knows else. But prior to that, it was man's perception, let's just use that the world was flat and that there was a point where you could get to the end and, and today I think some of those theories still exist. But the one that has always puzzled even the skeptics, the naysayers, is hollow earth. Our science has and will be proven wrong again. How about that? I don't even watch that show, The Magicians. Interesting. And yes, when you think of an inner earth, you also have to think dimensionally. Believe it or not, us sentient beings, we exist in multiple dimensions. It's hard to, sometimes to picture that, but it's true. I see it a lot when I'm in my time of, what do you want to call it? Meditation, reflection time, astral traveling. I went somewhere last night. Big Al, I saw you last night, buddy. Don't know if you felt or not. And I saw Miss Trina. It was really interesting. When you take those little jaunts, they're fun. You'll never know who you might see along the way. And you see a lot. It's far out. Best thing I say to when I meet someone is, I just invoke favor over them, speak favor. But anyway, it's part of being a multidimensional being. It's what we are. It's who we are. And I put together, we're going to go over a lot of stuff. This is going to bleed over in tomorrow. I know it. So, let me first go and get it. I have to go fetch, It's like, okay, Stagger, go fetch. Hold on one second. Okay. I had to go fetch it, folks. There we go. It happens. It's been a busy morning. Like really busy. Okay. So, class is in session. Let's rock and roll, folks. Because your mama can't dance and your daddy don't rock. All right. Hollow Earth. Now, no one I know has ever been to the North Pole. Never talked to anybody that has. Never talked to anybody who's been to the South Pole. I am told that there are explorers that have gone down there. We know that in the early days, there were. We still find there their cabins frozen perfectly like the day they left. We will be talking about one of the most notable explorers, if you want to call it that, would be Admiral Byrd. Writers, Jules Verne's, there's just a host of others who say that the Earth is in fact is hollow. Now, there is a misconception. Some think that, this hollow goes all the way through. Others feel that the Earth is so large on the inside. We just live on the skin of it. It's like having an orange. We live on the outer skin, and if you peel, right, the orange peel away, you get into what we would call the true essence. That's the orange itself. So depending on what your point of view is, we're going to be going over the following are all books that are on PDF. This is The Hollow History. And folks, when you start looking at this, it's kind of like Roger's work over at Mud Fossil University. It's there. The Hollow Earth and the Underground Cities. The Earth isn't flat, but much bigger than what we've been told. Gigantica. The sun is actually on the inside of the planet. Here's another one, The Smoky God, or The Voyage to the Inner World. Academia explores this. We've seen this in the madness of men, in this case, Dante's Inferno. You have the 13 different levels of hell. But in order for hell to exist, ladies and gentlemen, you have to believe in the hollow earth. Christianity teaches the hollow earth. Islam teaches the hollow earth. And I do believe Hindus teach the hollow earth. In fact, Judaism teaches the hollow earth. Can't get away from it. But the prevailing understanding in today's social culture is that, well, you can't believe anything. But if you believe in a religion and associate yourself, whether it be with Christianity, Islam, Judaism, whatever, your belief is all about the hollow earth. Can't have hell exist if there is not a hollow earth. You remember, Satan rules the underworld. It's a world, folks. Yeah, much on that one a little bit. There have been fantastic stories, like Edidorfa, the man who started it all, on his journey of the man who had no eyes, that fantastic creatures live because the earth generates its own energy. It is a living biosphere inside and out. It has many different levels, many different firmaments, both above and below. It's been there all along. The Nazis, they were looking for the lost continent of Agatha, I believe that. Agathar, yep. And apparently they found it. Again, paintings. Let me ask you something. Isn't it odd when I showed you the picture that showed both the Christ and God sitting on their thrones, and in between them they had the globe, which was the earth. Now, in the one painting, it actually had antennas on it. Now, you explained that one. But there is the belief, and listen, follow the science on this. If the earth's core is what they speculate, think that it may be molten, whatever, they know it's intensely hot, hotter than the sun. All right, start putting the things together. There have been satellite pictures that clearly show something going on with Earth and what we've seen in representation both on Saturn, Jupiter, Neptune. Take a look. So you have layers of the Earth. It's all electric. It's unfathomable to think that you have 120 miles of the crust. And then to get to the core, you've got about another 2,000, 2,500 miles thereabouts. No, excuse me, more than that. It would be actually 12,000, 12,500 plus miles. Folks, that's going back and forth across the United States about, I think it's 11 or 12 times. I mean, satellite reconnaissance pictures never give us a view, the actual view of looking down on either pole. You can get a side shot, you can get an angle shot, but never there. And as we're going to go through this, you're going to see that there are many that actually believe there is a physical opening. A lot of science has been pictured on this. There was a Star Trek The Next Generation episode where they actually brought back Scotty in the character, but it was called the Dyson Sphere. The Dyson Sphere was, and listen, we're talking Gene Roddenberry almost 30 years ago, that the theory is that you could capture a sun and put a planet around it. And thus, the surfer dwellers would, realize that there was something else underneath there that was an actual star. So this is the concept. Of course, I haven't been there. Now, this is reported out of the CIA files. I don't know. Everything I show you here, I'm just showing you. You determine what you want to think or don't want to think on this. Again, books, lectures, literatures. We live inside. That heaven really is inside. Now, you think that this concept is just science fiction, fringe thinking? I'm going to show you how the largest religion in the world is all about the hollow earth. The Science Times. If you go back and you begin to look at these slides, these pictures, the microfiche in many cases, Einstein's theory of relativity dictates that the closer you are to the center of the earth, the slower time goes. For example, at the top of Mount Everest, a year would be approximately 15 microseconds shorter than at sea level. Scientists have tested Einstein's theory of relativity at the small distances we travel up and down every day. Using the world's most precise clocks, they confirmed that our wristwatches tick at a slightly different speed when we ride an elevator, climb a flight of stairs, or even sit upright in bed. What's time? It's all the individual. There have been odd things that we have seen. pictures that show the Earth differently in 2012 than what it is today. It says if you slice the Earth vertical in half and then measure the radial distance on both halves from the center, you'd get arrested. So this is, by the way, a planet called HD 189733b. They call it an Earth-like planet, but actually it's not. Actually, the winds blow at 7 times the speed of sound, and its moraine is made of molten glass, but it's blue. But again, you look at these pictures and look at the north of Earth. Here's an interesting fact. For over 40 years, a small section of people, about 2%, all around the world have complained about hearing a mysterious sound which has been widely called the hum. The source of this noise remains unknown, and it's still unexplained by science. Another odd fact about Earth, we live in, they say, a vacuum. But again, if you've got planets that, are sealed, does there not exert pressures? You think about this. And in space is made up of 74% hydrogen, 24% helium. Earth's atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. And the interesting thing, when you look at the hydrogen and the helium, those are what they call non-corrosive gases. The only corrosive gas in here is oxygen. Oxidation, oxidizing. Do you ever think about that? We could live and breathe quite naturally on nitrogen alone. In fact, deep sea divers do. And if you add helium, which is a passive inert gas, you can see. Fantastical stories have been taught. I talk about there up in Kentucky, up in the northwest of Kentucky. And if you've seen on the maps I showed yesterday, the cave complexes, I believe that those exist as well under the ocean. Fantastic stories again. They say that the dinosaurs, the dragons, never went extinct. They went under the ground. Seems far out, far-fetched maybe, but hey, when you begin to look at all different religions, and this is Hindu, there's clear teachings. Something is at the center. There is a world, there is another universe, you could say. Again, philosophies, theologies, all talk about this whole idea. It's an amazing thought. Ancient maps showing a different Antarctica 500 years ago than the one we have today. We're finding new continents that we never knew existed. Could it be that there is such a opening? Well, we're going to find out. We're going to read about Admiral Byrd. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. Notice the dark spot in the center of Antarctica. Look at it right here. What is it that we're seeing here? It appears that it's drawing in wind. Now, we see the same thing on Saturn. course, with Saturn, it's the pentagon, excuse me. Now, this sits in the Vatican. Folks, they're telling you something here. A world within a world. Again, you can't have hell exist if there's not a hollow earth, folks. You can't. Excuse me. The new thing came out today about climate change. Anyway, ancient drawings, people that do remote viewing have said this is true. NORAD, back in the day, their satellite path avoided the North Pole. This is a picture from NASA, as you can see. And again, you can see how the subsurface winds would be pulled in. Any of you who have ever gone in through a cave on a tour, the ones that are open to the public, those of you who are fellow spelunklers, you know you have a cave when you can actually have a cave that breathes. Again, from the CIA files. What is it that, and today, none of us see the raw data that comes from the satellites. But it's the early ones, the ones in the 60s, that proved to be the most interesting. Look at here at the North Pole. The same effect. Now, this is not enhanced by the satellite. It's just showing exactly what's happening. But again, I've never been there. Here we see again the Aurora Borealis and the central point at the North Pole. This was May 11th, 1999, 14:01:09 UT time. This same anomaly. What are we witnessing? Don't know. We see anomalies, but even with Jupiter, they block out aspects of the pole areas. But no matter how you want to begin to look at this, when you begin to assimilate and collect all the data, well, this is not that far out. What did the ancients know? They knew something that today would be considered foolishness. You know, far fringe thinking, conspiratorial thinking. Don't know. And so are we just seeing, again, at the North Pole, an anomaly? Don't know. Now, I'm suspect of this one, to be candid with you. However, the hollow earth theory, I have to say there is a lot of veracity to the idea. Beings that live under the ground. And again, you cannot deny this is, again, Antarctica. When you see this in multiple different satellite pictures, and probably, I think a couple of them were high reconnaissance. That's what it looked like to me. Explorers who said that they have, in fact, seen these openings. I don't know. It would not surprise me, to be candid with you. Give me a chance to get out of here, because we're going to go through some very interesting documents that, again, what do you do with it? I know it's a startling statement to make that the major religions today all validate the hollow earth fact. I can't say it's a theory anymore because they've been spouting this for thousands of years. I've only been here a very short period of time. I mean, think about it. And I know some of those of you who are listening, you finally get it. And he says, well, wait a minute, he's right. So if there's a hell, well, if hell's inside the earth, and yeah, you're going, the boy may have something there, Martha. Now, I told you, we're not even done yet, folks. We've just begun. Yes, we've just begun to live. Not that. I don't want that one. White lace and promises. Okay. Here we go. Now, y'all all remember the one that we talked about yesterday. I believe this one is the Dead Men Secrets. Yeah. So we know something is going on. We have a satellite above this. And by the way, I love the story, how this is actually, I like it in really involving the characters of the facts in this story. This is on my list to get all the way through. But it's so interesting that when we realize that, all right, there's a satellite up there that apparently survived whatever cataclysm that hit us last. We don't know who built it. We don't know. And I would think that by now, we probably have one of our TR-3s up there, probably been able to look at it closer. We've seen supposed pictures of the Black Knight. We're finding artifacts all over the world. As we're digging, we have found what looks to be a nuclear power plant. How's that possible? And who were these people? I mean, they couldn't have been the Neanderthals, couldn't have been the Denisovans. I mean, the time wouldn't allow them to have been the Nephilim or the Raphaim. What's going on? And then you have books like this, The Hollow Earth Explorers, getting into the stories. This one talks about those who have gone there. They get into a little bit more depth. I mean, you start looking at Jules Verne, Journey to the Center of the Earth. There was a time in science when science was more enlightened. Let me just put it that way. I mean, the arrogance of man to say on the surface that, brother, there's only the surface. It's a question whether it's, round, a globe, a sphere, or if it's just a disc, man. We ain't got time for this hollow earth. But again, your very religion, because you're going to hold up your righteous, beliefs, explain it. It talks about the different explorers that through modern history that have continued to report contact with the hollow earth. Pythias, excuse me, 325 BC. Olaf Jensen, 1829. Rear Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd, 1947. All reported the same thing. In this document, it tells you exactly what these explorers found. In the annals of, and this is the first in one Pytheas, that in the annals of prehistoric polar research, the first known polar explorer was Pytheas of Greece. It was he who reported the discovery in about 325 BC of a strange inhabited land known as Thule within the Arctic Circle. This island seems to have been somewhat north of Spitsbergen and within 1 day's sail of the pack ice. And it goes on to say, well, who was Pytheas? You see, he was a Greek merchant. The next one we have is Olaf Jensen and his father. Olaf Jensen was born October 27th, 1811. And he was 19 years old when he and his father embarked between April and June 1829 on their yearly fishing trip. After having a successful trip the previous year, Olaf's father expressed the hope that this time we might again be fortunate enough to load our little fishing slop with ivory instead of cod, herring, mackerel, and salmon. Leaving Stockholm and arriving in France, Joseph Lon, Olaf's father, declared that there was a tradition that still further northward was a land more beautiful than any that mortal man had ever known, and that it was inhabited by the chosen. Consequently, they decided to go and try to find the place. After enduring a fierce storm, the icebergs, they sailed smoothly for 11 days in a northerly direction. They then discovered that they were in fresh water and refilled their drinking cask. Around the 1st of August, the sea grew calm, and they saw what they assumed was a reflection of the sun. However, it never moved. A few days after, they reached the shores of a great river, which carried them inland for a further 10 days. Along the banks of the river were great forests with gigantic trees that appeared to stretch for miles. It was about the 1st of September when they heard singing voices and saw a very large ship sailing down the river towards them. It was a larger ship than any we had ever seen. It was definitely differently constructed, Olaf declared later. The immense craft paused. Almost immediately, a boat was lowered, and 6 men of gigantic stature rowed to our little fishing slope. They spoke to us in a strange language. We knew from their manner, however, that they were not unfriendly. They talked a great deal amongst themselves, and one of them laughed immoderately, as though in finding us as queer discovery has been made. One of them spied our compass, and it seemed to interest them more than any other part of our sloop. How's that one? Love these stories, folks. Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, 1947 flight over the North Pole. Rear Admiral Byrd, 1888. Well, there you go, 888. 1957. The U.S. Navy was a distinguished pioneer aviator and polar explorer who made the first flight over the North Pole on May 9th, 1926. Consequently, he led numerous exploratory expeditions to the Antarctica, including the first flight over the South Pole on November 29th, 1929, excuse me. Rear Admiral found the entrance to the hollow Earth during his 1947 North Pole flight. It was described in the book Worlds Beyond the Poles. I've gotten this book, by the way. The United States Navy Polar Exploratory Force was preparing to embark upon one of the most memorable adventures in world history. Under the command of Rear Admiral Richard Alvin Byrd, it was to penetrate into land extending beyond the North Pole, supposed the end of the Earth. As the hour approached for the air journey into the land beyond, Admiral Byrd transmitted from the Arctic base a radio announcement of his purpose. But the announcement was so astonishing that that its import was lost to millions who avidly read it in the press headlines throughout the world. The words of the message were momentous. Here they are. I'd like to see the land between the pole. That area beyond the pole is the center of the great unknown. As Admiral and his airplane crew accomplished a physical flight of 7 hours duration in a northerly direction beyond the North Pole, every mile and every minute of that journey beyond was over ice and water, or land that no explorer had seen. As progress was made beyond the pole point, there was observed directly under the plane's course iceless land and lakes, and mountains where foliage was abundant. Moreover, a brief newspaper account of the flight held that a member of the Admiral's crew had observed a monstrous greenish hue animal moving through the underbrush of the land beyond the pole. On 19 February 1947, Admiral Byrd left Base Camp Arctic and flew northward, but what actually happened on the flight? Since that time, rumors and anecdotal evidence has persisted that on his flight to the North Pole, Admiral Byrd actually flew beyond the pole and into an opening, which led inside the Earth. Further, while inside the Earth, Admiral Byrd met with advanced beings who communicated with him and gave him a message to be delivered to the inhabitants of the surface world. Upon his return to Washington, 11 March 1947, Admiral Byrd was thoroughly interrogated by top security personnel and was examined and profiled by a specialist medical team. Checking out his, brains up there. Moreover, he was placed under strict control and was ordered to remain silent on the behalf of humanity. And being a true military man, Admiral Byrd felt it was his duty to fully comply. Consequently, it is only now that the facts of his remarkable plight have emerged. Here is the story taken from Admiral Byrd's secret log and diary, which was meant to have been told almost 6 decades ago. The following is taken from The Hollow Earth by Dr. Richard Byrd, 1979. During his Arctic flight of 1,700 miles beyond the North Pole, he reported by radio that he saw below him not ice and snow, but land areas consisting of mountains, forest, green vegetation, lakes, and rivers, and in the underbrush saw a strange animal resembling the mammoth. In January 1956, Admiral Byrd led another expedition to the Antarctica and there penetrated for 2,300 miles beyond the South Pole. The radio announcement at this time, January 13th, 1956, said, on January 13th, members of the United States expedition penetrated the land extent of 2,300 miles beyond the pole. The flight was made by Rear Admiral George Duffick of the United States Navy Air Unit. Byrd said on March 13th, 1956, the present expedition has opened up a vast new land. Admiral Byrd said in February 1945, before his North Pole flight, I'd like to see that land beyond the pole. That area beyond the pole is the center of the great unknown. The following is taken from the flight of the land beyond the pole, the missing diaries of Admiral Richard E. Byrd, Inner Light Publications, Brunswick, New Jersey. I bid you welcome to our domain, Admiral. I see a man with delicate features and with etchings of years upon his face. He is seated at a long table. He motions me to sit down in one of the chairs. After I'm seated, he places his fingertips together and smiles. He speaks softly again and conveys the following. We have let you enter here because you are a noble character and well known on the surface world, Admiral. Surface world, I half grasped underneath my breath. Yes, the master replies with a smile. You are in the domain of the Arne, the inner world of Earth. We shall not long delay your mission, and you will be safely escorted back to the surface and for a distance beyond. Now, I can tell you ahead of the story, there were actually two flying saucers with Nazi emblems, the swastika, that actually guided Byrd into this place where he's at now. He said, but now, Admiral, I shall tell you why you have been summoned here. Our interest rightly begins just after your race exploded the first atomic bombs over Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan. It was at that alarming time we sent our flying machines, the Flugorods, that's how it is, to your surface world to investigate what your race had done. That is, of course, past history now, my dear Admiral, but I must continue on. You see, we have never interfered before in your race's wars and barbarity, but now we must, for you have learned to tamper with certain power that is not for man. Namely, that of atomic energy. Our emissaries have already delivered messages to the powers of your world, and yet they do not heed. Now you have been chosen to be witness here to our world, that our world does exist. You see, our culture and science is many thousands of years beyond your race, Admiral. I interrupted him. But what does that have to do with me, sir? The master eyes seemed to penetrate deeply into my mind, and after studying me for a few moments, he replied, your race has now reached the point of no return. For there are those among you who would destroy your very world rather than relinquish their power as they know it. I nodded, and the master continued. Isn't it interesting? It's the master, capital M. In 1945 and afterwards, we tried to contact your race, but our efforts were met with hostility. Our Flugorods were fired upon, yes, even pursued with malice and animosity by your fighter planes. So now I say to you, my son, there is a great storm gathering in your world, a black fury that will not spend itself for many years. There will be no answer to in your armies. There will be no safety in your science. It may rage on until every flower of your culture is trampled and all human beings are leveled in vast chaos. Your recent war was only a prelude of what is yet to come for your race. We here see it more clearly each hour. Do you say I am mistaken? No, I answered. It happened once before. The Dark Ages came and they lasted for more than 500 years. Yes, my son, replied the master, the Dark Ages that will come now for your race will cover the earth like a pall. But I believe that some of your race will live through the storm. Beyond that, I cannot say. We see at a great distance a new world stirring from the ruins of your race, seeking its lost and legendary treasures. And they will be here, my son, safe in our keeping. When that time arrives, we shall come forward again to help revive your culture and your race. Perhaps by then you will have learned the futility of war and its strife. And after that time, certain of your culture and science will be returned for your race to begin anew. You, my son, are to return to the surface world with this message. With those closing words, our meeting seemed to an end. I stood for a moment as in a dream, but yet I know this was reality. And for some strange reason, I bowed slightly, either out of respect or humility. I do not know which. Suddenly, I was again aware that the two beautiful hosts who had brought me here were there again at my side. This way, Admiral, motioned one. I turned once and before leaving and looked back towards the master. A gentle smile was etched on his delicate ancient face. Farewell, my son, he spoke. Then he gestured with a lovely, slendered hand, a motion of peace, and our meeting was truly ended. Quickly, we walked back through the great door of the master chambers and once again entered into the elevator. The door slid silently downward, and we were once again upward. One of my hosts spoke again. We must now make haste, Admiral, as the master desires to delay you no longer on your scheduled timetable, and you must return with this message to your race. Well, how do you like that one? So, then we have the Hollow History. Now, this is an interesting book inasmuch that it describes, again, much akin to the other documents, for instance, this one, the Hollow Earth underground cities. Again, going from records of past explorers, we find time and time again. It seems, if you think about it, our species, if you think we came from, I don't know, ape. I hate to say that, but Neanderthal man, Cro-Magnon man, were they knuckle draggers, or they just, we talk about the Bronze Age, the Iron Age. It's weird. But it seems like the subterranean world saved us. Early man, it seems like we were, right at the top of the food chain. We were the ones being eaten. And if it wasn't for the subterranean world, caves, etc., we probably would not have survived. Get on with one other one here. This is an interesting read. It's a short one. But again, it all goes into particularly what they have been seeing down. And I followed this for years, folks. It just got to be where it was just so strange that you couldn't handle it anymore. It was like, there was stuff going on down there, and there still is. But again, all of these, what I would call most curious tidbits, they're not long. Some are 300 or 400 pages, but many are not. It just shows that, did Admiral Byrd see something down there? I'm convinced, yes. I found it interesting. Remember the last remake of War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise? The interesting thing about the premise of that remake was that the vehicles, which later became the, destroyers walking on the surface, were already underground, implying that there was a race here that anticipated a return and put their assets under the ground. I wonder if that may be, in fact, true. Think about it. And there have been theories about Antarctica, that the ice was artificially manufactured. It was there as a defensive barrier. And apparently it worked for a long time. But if that's the case, then you can imagine the technology. Hey, David Barry, how are you doing? Good to see you. Big Al, you be careful out there as you're driving. So, folks, we're going to continue on this. I mean, it gets stranger and stranger. I am really anticipating tomorrow night to be quite something. This is from the book that I'm just about to complete. Folks, it's going to be a special hour. It may go longer if I can keep John and Bruce. I will. I have a feeling that this is this. I'm trying to read this as it's going by. The Aztecs, yeah. In fact, it's there. There's a lot of thinking now going that they just didn't disappear. They went underground. We've seen a lot of these cultures that have just, whether it's the Inca, the Mayans, others around the world that just disappeared from the face of the earth. Yeah, I think they did. I think they went down. So, yeah, Kirk, that's a very good idea. Very good idea. What you were just saying there. I think that it's obviously that we've been manipulated. I contend, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to get this in our heads. If we're only using 10% of the capacity of cognitive thought process in these brains, folks, that is a dysfunctional organ. If 10% of your heart was working, you are, as they would say, on the way out, Jack. If your pancreas is only working 10%, you're on your way out, Jack. I mean, something isn't right here, and we accept this as normal. Well, it's just the way it is. He's just a dumbass, He's got an IQ of a pissant. What? We all have the IQ of a pissant. No one in here is any bloody genius. We should be. Every one of us should be. The regressed lack of progression of our species is alarming. And it's quite evident that it has been done purposely, with intent, and I dare say malice, it would seem. Hey, Lawrence, that's cute. Says if 10% of your heart is working, you're a politician. Isn't that the truth? Or a preacher, one of the two. But anyway, I'm just telling you, folks, something isn't right. I am not going to stop this until we get this thing going. I am Wile E. Coyote, super genius. Yeah, it just depends. The point is, and I think we all get that, is that this isn't right. Something is wrong here. It's just wrong. And as a species that I'm a part of, the species of man, it sucks to think that a higher intelligence has deliberately hindered our species from advancing. Why? Don't know. Thousands of years, folk, we didn't progress at all. Very little. And if you take the last 100 years, we have progressed light years, but then actually our brains haven't actually kept up with that. I think it's the cause of why you're seeing people go back crap crazy, just right off the edge. Anyway, all right, folks. Yeah, there is a lot of thought. All of you have your thoughts on this. I'm just putting it out there. There's got to be a reason why. Why science won't tackle it, why medical science won't tackle it, why spiritual people won't tackle it. Why is it that we're held to such a finite, limited amount of cognitive thought? Something ain't right. Something ain't right up there. That's all I'm telling you. All right, folks, tune in tonight, if you will, over at artistfirst.com, 10 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 West Coast, and wherever you are in the world. I'm going to get more into this. Yeah, there's some weird stuff going on. I think we're getting closer. Who knows? Maybe the men in black will come by. Maybe we can interview them. All right, folks. Much peace to you. Appreciate all of you. Much love. And see you tomorrow as well. And yeah, hey, you're going to see a lot of me here for the next couple of days. Who'd have thought? Anyway, all right. I'll see you later, Gators. And we'll talk later. Bye bye.